Since I'm a science major, the majority of things that I learn in this class I did not know already. These include the perception process, which is selection, organization, interpretation, negotiation. I also learned some common tendencies in perception. These include making snap judgments, clinging to first impressions, assuming other people are like us, fundamental attribution error, and kind of things that would get in the way of getting an accurate perception of the message. I used to think that words in language meant they had one meaning, that's what they meant, but I actually learned that language is symbolic. So words are just symbols which have no meaning until we give the meaning to them. This is why nonverbal communication is also so important, because your nonverbal messages can add to the symbols that are given to these words. I learned different listening styles, including task-oriented, relational, analytical, critical. Basically, they're used depending upon the situation. So one listening style isn't always right. For instance, task-oriented might be used more in a professional setting, rather than if you're sitting on your couch talking to your mom, because task-oriented is for efficiency, for accomplishing a job. I also learned different components of listening, so you don't just sit and receive the message. You actually have hearing, attending, understanding, remembering, and responding. Also, I learned some factors that might influence our choices, including appearance, similarity, rewards, competency, proximity, and disclosure. So instead of just making a choice, you can actually learn maybe why you subconsciously made that decision. So after learning these, I picked a few things that I'd like to implement in my everyday life, including focusing on using as many components as listening as I can to make sure that I perceive the message correctly. Another way that I would like to make sure that the message is perceived correctly is by summarizing and clarifying a message that is received, so I can make sure that if I have any misconception, that the sender, the speaker, can clarify that for me. I would like to try to communicate in an atmosphere with minimal noise, also to increase accuracy in perceiving a message. I would like to not stick to snap judgments that could lead to false impressions. I think we're all a little guilty of that, but I would like to try in my everyday life to minimize that. On the point of relationships, personal and professional, I would like to be able to recognize the stagnating phase. So if you recognize this phase, you know at this point you either have to try hard to fix the issues in a relationship or realize that it might be time for termination. The stagnating phase is in the part of the relationship where there's relationship boredom, no emotional growth, so you either have to fix the issues or end the relationship. I would also like to use strategies for managing dialectical tensions, which include denial, disorientation, alternation, segmentation, balance, integration, recalibration, and reaffirmation. So based off this information, I was able to assess myself, and through the Jaharis window assignment, I learned that I have a large hidden area and a small blind area. Basically, I was raised kind of hiding your flaws, put up the perfection front, and I think this contributed to a large hidden area because there are a lot of things that I don't show the public, and also why the blind area was decreased is because there's not really much that I let other people know about me that I'm not aware of myself. I also found out that I most often use task-oriented listening style because my communication is typically an effort to get a job done. Right now, my two main jobs, I work at the hospital, work for the Department of Anesthesiology, and I'm also a student. So with these two jobs, typically the majority of my communication is in order to get a job done, which is why task-oriented is what I use the most in my everyday life. I also found out that I assume people are like me in regards of having a strong moral compass, which isn't always a great thing to have and also makes problems with perception. I realize that I'm strongly influenced by competency. If I don't think you appear competent, I will not trust you with a task. I won't even trust information typically that someone gives me if I don't think that they are competent. I also found out that I'm not very good with listening styles as a listening response, or with silent listening as a listening response, because I'm very opinionated and would rather evaluate than be a silent participant. For example, you can see my friends are a very tight-knit group, so when we speak to each other, we're typically not looking for a silent participant, we're typically looking for advice. Especially being in college away from our families, we lean on our friends a little bit more, so we kind of just want to make sure that our decisions are right and kind of just get other opinions. So I'm not very good as a silent listener. I also found out that as a student, I am very highly influenced by rewards. So when I go to the hospital, I get paid and I get experience, so that kind of makes my decision easier of, okay, I should continue working here, I should continue going to work. So that's what persuades me in most of my life. And in class, with our grades, we do an assignment well, we put in a lot of effort, we study for an exam, we get a higher grade. So that's another reward. So being a student and having a job, rewards typically influence our decisions.